I think online friendships have become really important because so much of our interaction has moved online. In the past couple of years, especially with COVID, many young people, that's been their only way to connect and to communicate. So they've become all the more so kind of critical in terms of just having basic social engagement. I think it's really critical that parents kind of differentiate between those things that they need to be sort of on top of and sort of worried about online, and the things that are actually quite positive, like a kid's online communities, like those friendships that they have. I think, we often speak about online bullying, which is horrific when a child is going through it. But at the same time, that gadget that they're being bullied on might be also the same gadget that they're getting that support and the love from their friends, from other kids. So these blunt instruments, I think sometimes it's sort of just let's kind of take everything away and all online interaction is bad, is not necessarily the case at all. We need to have balance, and it comes down to, I think, understanding in a much more nuanced way what goes on online for your child and how you can feed into that. I think managing children's expectations of what they're going to find online is key. In the same way, think about how often we manage a child's expectations with anything new that they engage with, right? When they're going into a new school, when they're going to try a new sport, when they're going to try and ride their bike, there's a sense of, look, this is not going to be immediately easy. Here are the things you need to look out for. Here are the things that you may not think are important that are. So being able to kind of lay down those ground rules, to kind of explain to them what they might expect, but critically also to say to them, when you find a bump in the road, you need to speak to me. These are those kind of really important moments where you can kind of get in that all important message about open communication with your child. I think when you give your child sort of access to the online world, it's like giving them access to a brand new street that they've never walked down before. So what you would do is say, look, there's going to be lots of wonderful candy shops and toy shops, but there's also, like down any street, there's going to be cards, zooming down really fast that might hurt you. There's going to be sort of information in shops that adults should go into that kids shouldn't. So there's got to be an awareness of what's appropriate for you. So I think giving them a heads up that this tool comes with responsibilities is going to be critical, because that's the message that you want to kind of embed early on, and then you want to expand on that. So initially, those responsibilities are going to be monitored by you, and then as you slowly let go, they need to be aware of it. But the message always needs to be that this is access to the world, and whereas there's lots of wonderful things, there's always going to be danger. But as long as we're protected and we think about it critically, then we can mitigate that danger. One of the most critical things you can do for your child is speak to them about the source. When they're online, that negativity that they see or they may kind of find directed towards them, one of the best ways to distance themselves is to think about, well, who is saying this? Do they matter in my life? If I was walking down the street and someone that I'd never heard of shouted something really, really cruel to me, would I take that to heart? Where is this negativity coming from? And likewise, this idea of the source also comes from how you protect them from buying into things that may not be true. We've had a lot of talk over the last couple of years about fake news, right? We've had a lot of talk about how news outlets now, because there's so many, try and scare us in order to get that engagement. I think that kind of media literacy is probably all the more important, and actually all the more important to start younger. Isn't it interesting how the stories that we tend to be interested in are the biggest, are the scariest? Well, that's because that's the way our brains work. So we need to kind of seek out the good stories, right? It doesn't, just because everyone's writing about the bad stuff doesn't mean the good stuff's there. And one of the tools that you could do is try to teach them to kind of look at finding the good stuff. How do we find the good stories? How do we engage with positive people? Again, we speak a lot about sort of curating your consciousness. What does that mean? It means, what am I letting into my mind? And this is what we do with our kids, right? We're very careful that they're eating fruits and they're eating vegetables, they're not eating junk food. Well, it's the same thing online, right? You don't want them scrolling sort of the junk food of their mind, these awful sites that tell them the way they ought to look, or that are very mean, or that are age inappropriate. What you want is to get them engaged with the good stuff. And that's going to mean explaining why that's important to them early on and helping them navigate that. I think we need to kind of speak about being brave when it comes to standing up for themselves and what they believe in online. I think with kids, especially in the online world, voices seem very loud. So being able to have the bravery of sort of taking a minute to think about, how am I going to respond to this? You know, what feels right for me? And when they are unsure, to kind of engage you in that decision, right? Well, everyone's piling on this person, or everyone says that we should like this. I'm not sure that's the case. Being able to ask for help, being able to kind of orientate themselves to their values. And I think a big part of this is teaching them how to is teaching them how to respond versus how to react. And that's often what happens online, even with adults. Like, we react, we don't sort of thoughtfully respond. So kind of establishing that kind of engagement with your child, where you're like, look, this is going to feel really bad, you're going to want to fight back right away. Let's kind of talk about how best to do that.